Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. NNMi 10.10, Manage your virtual infrastructure. My name is Sri Dikshitlu. Today is your host. Today's webinar brought by Hewlett Packard Enterprise. My name is Sri Dikshitlu. I'm your host. I'm a solution architect from Accenture, and also I'm Vivit Service Management SIG. I'm part of Global HP Alliances organization, and my primary focus area, manage HPE software portfolio that includes NNMi, network automation, and Offbridge, other softwares with that related to various platforms and solutions that we support to our internal top 100 customers. Before, today's speaker is Joe Reeves. Today's speaker is Joe Reeves. He's a product manager from network management, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Joe has been with HPE for about 28 years with various key roles in HPE IT, enterprise services, worldwide support, and utilizes his cross-functional experience as a senior product manager for the NNMi product line. He has extensive experience, includes supporting enterprise services as a network tools architect and as a technical network service manager. While he's with HPE IT, he worked to create the Network Management Center of Excellence program, which deployed LAN network management tools to HPE sites worldwide. Prior to HPE, Joe worked with EDS, where he helped in building and managing networks that extended across US and Mexico border in support of General Motors manufacturing facilities. He has a particular passion for traffic management and performance characterization. Thanks, Joe, for this giving us opportunity. So before going into this session, I want to highlight some housekeeping items. As you know, today's live session is intended for all Vivit members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivit website, which is visible to all members. Additionally, today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted to the Vivit website. If you have any questions as we go along, please type and send them in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel. So I think everybody is aware of control panel, but I wanted to run through. Here is a picture of go to webinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure questions pane is expanded and type in your question and click on send. I think we can get started. So let's get started and I will pass it over to Joe Reeves. Joe, you can take it from here.
Shri, thanks very much for the introduction and welcome, folks. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Joe Reeves, Product Manager in the Network Management Center, and we're going to talk today about some new features that we're introducing in Network Node Manager 10.10. But before we talk about those features, we're going to talk a little bit about the origin of Network Node Manager and an anniversary that we celebrated last year. So Network Node Manager is a quarter of a century old. Network Node Manager introduced to the industry the notion that we could dynamically discover network elements in our network, understand the relationship between those elements, and then visually represent those. And that was a pretty exciting new capability when it was initially introduced. I remember turning this tool loose on HP's own internal network and watching nodes come up, connections come up between them, and dynamic mapping in progress. Prior to the introduction of this tool, network mapping was largely a node-to-node command line exercise, or an exercise in drawing the physical connectivity of the network and kind of inferring what kind of connectivity was actually available. And so what you see here is an early user interface for this initial version of Network Node Manager, where we're starting to lay out and draw connections between the nodes. We're going to talk today about how we have continued to innovate over a quarter of a century to introduce new capabilities and new visualizations into the tool and remain relevant to our customers. Network Node Manager was initially introduced in 1990. It was codenamed Monet for monitor networks. We've had about 55, I think now 56 releases of the product, well over 185 patents in terms of intellectual property have gone into Network Node Manager over the course of its life. And the technology now that we've developed in NNM has become pervasive throughout Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. We're taking embedded intellectual property that we've developed and brought to market in our tool now and sharing that with other parts of HPE to bring new capabilities to their tools as well. 250,000 downloads, and it's pretty rare, I think, to see a piece of software remain a relevant and critical part of our customers' management environment over 25 years. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that have shaped our evolution of the product over that last 25 years. I think we're all seeing now an increasing pace of new demands from our business, from the line of business, and we're dealing with higher scale requirements in terms of BYOD, the extension of our network perimeter from a traditional on-premise, sharply defined enterprise network perimeter now to home telecommuters, mobile workers, public cloud, and off-premise facilities. And all of those are driving higher scale. We're all trying to assess what the Internet of Things and an increasing number of directly addressable devices will have as an impact to our management environment. We're seeing vendors introduce new technologies in the form of new virtualization technologies in the network space, as well as the emergence of software-defined networking, and that's driving increasing complexity in the network. That complexity is introducing some concerns around security and how we securely manage connectivity in our environment, whether we are seeing those concerns reflected in increased external regulation or just in the need to develop internal standards within the enterprise, we're faced with the challenges of ensuring that our devices are consistently configured, auditing them for compliance, and ensuring that they remain compliant. I think we're all dealing with automation initiatives to try to increase our agility and improve the consistency and accuracy of the environment, but that's also driving lower staff levels and creating an issue keeping our staff current with the introduction of new technologies. And we're seeing the pace of change pick up and the need for agility, not just to match the business, but also to be a competitive differentiator for our business as a key driver. And so our lines of business are coming to us as network infrastructure managers, and they are asking us not simply to provide a reliable utility, but also to provide key features that will make their business more competitive and differentiate their business in the market. And so some of the key drivers here that we see are around the adoption of cloud-based services and the management of hybrid environments, the introduction of mobile workers and the importance of supporting mobility in our applications, the application of big data and analytics to try to drive actionable business decisions in our business environment, and the presence of social media as a driver for our businesses. All of those kinds of drivers are making network infrastructure a really critical player and a partner to the business. And the business now is starting to come to network infrastructure providers and ask them about their catalog of services, standard network services that can be orchestrated through an entire life cycle, deployed quickly, managed and flexed during their lifetime, and then retired gracefully from management as well. Key challenge here and a real paradigm shift from a utility model that we've been working in the past. So as we look at the kinds of capabilities that we need to meet these challenges, we've categorized these along a continuum of capabilities. And we start down in the lower corner here when we talk about basic element management. We're talking about capabilities around managing, detecting the availability of our network elements and being able to see events that impact those network elements and identify faults and be able to correct those. But beyond simple event management, then an understanding of the root cause of these faults, being able to raise incidents and to manage the resolution of those incidents. These are all really table stakes in this environment. This is basic element management and a basic set of capabilities that we need pervasively across our entire network infrastructure. As we start to look at change management capabilities, beyond simple configuration, backup, or the management of configuration elements within individual devices in the network, we're also talking about the ability to manage configuration policies pervasively across the entire infrastructure and being able to manage mass changes and understand the relationship of changes between our network elements. And then the development of standards, whether those standards are dictated externally by different regulatory regimes, or whether those standards are established for consistency and resiliency within our own enterprise, the ability to audit against those standards, ensure that we are compliant, and to remediate deviations from compliance constitutes a set of change management capabilities. As we start to look at performance management, we're all very familiar with the ability to pull health metrics that are modeled in SNMP. That's a basic performance management capability, but more sophisticated performance management includes the ability to provision active testing and the characterization of network connectivity across specific paths in our network, the ability to do quality of service monitoring, and to report on the quality of the connectivity that we have, not just within our own enterprise network, but also then out to public cloud environments that we're starting to provision workloads into. Traffic flow analysis is key to be able to understand the application traffic that's flowing across our network, where it's flowing, who's talking, what they're talking about, and gain that visibility edge to edge for traffic flows that are traversing the network. So that forms the basis then for a more advanced set of capabilities that we're characterizing as fabric management. And so as we start to move from traffic flow analysis into real application awareness, understanding how our applications are performing and how the infrastructure that supports them impacts their performance, beginning to make choices about where we place workload and how we architect our application architectures, and then helping our customers move from individual task automation, repeatable task automation, to service orchestration, where we're embodying elements of several automated tasks to manage a life cycle of the service through its initial provisioning, its day 2 operations, which could include things like scheduled outages or capacity flex operations, and then being able to gracefully retire those managed services when they're no longer needed and be really agile in response to the business is around automation and orchestration. And then we see a key role for network analytics. All of this information that we're collecting, being able to analyze that information, to make that information actionable, and to help our business respond to changing business conditions with our clients. Those capabilities then we're characterizing as fabric management. What you'll notice across this entire continuum is that the common context, the basis for these capabilities, is a clear understanding of our topology. It's critical that we understand our physical and our virtual topology edge to edge to be able to put these kinds of capabilities into the correct context and to make those actionable. So that shared topological context, how we discover relationships between elements and how we manage that, is critically important. So we'll talk today about our path to fabric management, and we'll talk about what fabric management means, but we believe that there are some key milestones in our journey, our path to this fabric management capability. And we'll talk a little bit today about how we're executing on some of those key milestones in the 10.10 version of the product. But let's talk first about what we mean by fabric management. What does fabric management look like? So we've been using this graphic to talk about network fabric management, and the graphic on the left-hand side of the screen here that you'll see is from the Colorado Department of Transportation website. And it's a graphic that shows the location of traffic cameras within the state of Colorado. And what those traffic cameras represent is a very rich source of data for a very specific location in the roadways along Colorado highways. And so if I want to drill down into one of those traffic cameras, all I need to be able to do is to select from a list of about 400 different cameras which one or which ones I think might be relevant, and I can click on that, drill down into those, and I see a terrific real-time view of what's going on in that intersection. That's analogous to the capability that we have today. We have thousands of objects that are modeled and available to us in SNMP. They are very detailed, but they are associated with an individual element. And I need to bring the context of what's relevant to my business to the picture in order to make use of that very rich set of data and drill down into that. Now, if we look at the graphic on the right-hand side, this is a view that we're all familiar with. This is the Google Maps view with a traffic overlay. And what Google has done here is they have collected data from a variety of different sources. They're not looking at what is available through a single camera or what is modeled by a single data object. They are collecting data from cell phones, from toll tags, from embedded magnetic loops in the roadway, a variety of different sources. They're synthesizing that information that they have collected and reconciling that, and then they're presenting a state of the fabric. This is something that is actionable. I can make a decision about the route that I want to take through the fabric, or particular points in the fabric that I want to avoid. I can make a decision about whether to go around Denver or drive through it Friday night at rush hour. And this is the kind of capability that we're looking for in our own network infrastructure. This is a fabric management capability. So the question that we're going to explore today is, how do we get there? And what's our first milestone along this journey? And so at this point, I'd like to launch a survey, polling question number 1. And I'd like to pose the question about VMware networking and whether that is important to your organization. So let's go ahead and launch that poll. We'll give it a few minutes here. And Sri, if you could report back on the poll results, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I think this poll is about, is managing your VMware networking important to your organization? There are 3 items to select. One of them is already doing it, plan to do it in 2016, or no plans or not important. Please do that.
So we're looking here to understand if you're a VMware shop and the management of the network configuration, then for your VMware infrastructure is important for your organization.
That's great. Yeah, 1 more minute. I just want to give. Yeah, let's close this session question. And 56% already doing it. That's a great news, as expected.
Mm-hmm.
And plans to do it 2016 is 34%. And no plans are not important, 10%.
Okay. So I think that matches what we're hearing from most of our customers. They are adopting compute virtualization into their environment, and the management of network connectivity for that infrastructure is critically important then to most of these shops. So let's talk a little bit about network functions virtualization. One of the intermediate steps for network functions virtualization, which is one of these capabilities for enabling fabric management, is this evolution, this shift from dedicated hardware-based proprietary network appliances to a paradigm where we can deploy software-based network functions as appliances on a hypervisor. And so we're seeing now network vendors, network equipment vendors offering software-based firewalls, software-based load balancers, and we're seeing network infrastructure managers begin to deploy those then as hosted virtual machines on pools of shared compute resources. But one of the inhibitors to making this move and beginning to deploy software network appliances revolves around the visibility of the connectivity and the ability to monitor the connectivity of these devices once they're deployed in the hypervisor. Typically, with traditional network management tools, enterprise network management tools, you would start to lose visibility at the edge of the hypervisor, and you would not be able to to visualize what's actually going on inside the hypervisor. And if I'm deploying a load balancer or a firewall, it's critically important that I not only understand exactly how that device is connected, but I can also extend my monitoring and root cause analysis and performance management capabilities all the way into the hypervisor environment and into this device. So we're seeing this as a key enabler for this move from dedicated devices to software appliances. And so I'd like to launch another poll here, a polling question to ask if you are deploying these types of network appliances, these network function virtualization devices in your environment.
Are you guys, are your companies are deploying network function virtualizations at a device such as virtual load balancers? Already doing it? Plan to do it in 2016? Is it planned? Or no plans or not important? Poll is going okay, and people are polling it. I give 1 more minute.
So many of our customers are still in relatively siloed organizations where they have enterprise network management teams and then the hosts or compute teams that are managing their hypervisor-based environments. And so for many of our customers, the organizational structure there inhibits being able to work together and to deploy critical network appliances into the hypervisor environment. And so if this is the case for you, you may be considering staying with dedicated standalone devices. But I'm curious to see what the poll shows here.
Good point, Joe. Good point. Polling is closed. Can we close the poll? Yeah. The results are already doing it. I think some of the customers already initiated virtual load balancers kind of network virtualization area, and plans to do it in 2016, 32%. And I think that is what we are hearing from our clientele also in the market. And no plans are not important, 24%. This is the results. So already doing it 44%, Joe, and plans to do it is 32%, and no plans is 24%.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. All right, so let's talk about exactly what we're doing in NNMi 1010 to help facilitate this move to the deployment of virtual network functions. So we'll talk first about hypervisor-based network management, and I'll show you what that looks like in a VMware environment specifically. And then we'll talk about some other improvements that we've introduced with version 1010 around the user interface, around scalability and performance improvements in the core product, and then also some key enhancements in our traffic management capability as well for our performance iSpy. And then finally, we'll talk about how we are supporting different aspects of your environment that are changing very rapidly. So let's begin by talking about hypervisor-based network management. And so we've started down the path specifically with VMware management, supporting ESXi hosts, virtual switches, and the discovery of hosted virtual machines. And this is a foundational capability for us. We think that the approach that we've taken here may be relevant in other contexts as well. If you'd like to hear more about our future roadmap, you can set up a session with the product management team, and we to you about what our plans are for the future. But for what we're shipping now in version 1010, we've extended our fault and performance management capabilities into the ESX hypervisor specifically. And we're using a communication process with the services, exposed web services interface to the ESXi host to do discovery and status monitoring. And where traditionally in NNMi we have had an SNMP-based discovery and status process that runs against our network elements, we've now introduced a parallel process that is communicating with this web services interface on the ESXi host. So we're starting to introduce a diversity in the sources of information that we're collecting both topology and status information from. And that requires some communication configuration, much the same way that we have configured SNMP-based communication. We also need a set of credentials that we can use to access the ESXi host. These are read-only credentials. We're not making any changes here. We're basically just communicating with the host to get topology and status information. We can secure that communication channel, and we're using that then in conjunction with SNMP management, reconciling those two sources of information and presenting a common operational interface to the ESXi host. So let's talk about some of the specific use cases here. We want to be able to discover the virtual topology and exactly how it relates to the physical topology. What we want to present is a seamless view of the physical and virtual topology in a mode that the network operators are already very familiar with. So we've introduced then the hypervisors, our vSwitches implemented in the hypervisors, and we're modeling those switches then as multiplexer interfaces within the hypervisor. We're also discovering virtual machines, and those virtual machines then, the ones that we are most interested in are VMs that are used as virtualized network functions running routers or switches or load balancers or firewalls, other types of application data controllers that are implemented as software images and hosted virtual machines. We're showing visualizing the layer 2 connectivity within the hypervisor to all of the virtual machines, and we're showing then physical uplinks out to the access switch that the hypervisor is connected to. We want to be able to handle situations where we're relocating workloads. So in the vSphere environment, that means vMotion. We want to be able to detect that and update the topology. And then we're reconciling nodes that we're discovering through both of these discovery methods, both SNMP and web services. We want to be able to take both of those sources of information, consolidate those, and present a single interface. In terms of licensing, the virtual machines that we are discovering and managing only through the web agent are counted as 1/10 of a node. As in the past, if we discover nodes that are running SNMP agents, we're counting those as a single node. And then the virtual switches that we discover within the hypervisor, those don't count against our licensing at all. Those are simply features of the hypervisor. So in terms of the layer 2 layout, the map, you can see that we've introduced some new icons here. That circular icon in the center is the hypervisor, and you can see connected to the hypervisor are several virtual switches off to the right there, vSwitch 0, and the virtual machines that are connected through that vSwitch topology. So it's a very familiar layout in the layer 2 view for your existing operations staff, with just the introduction of a few new elements. Now, one of the things we're really excited about are a couple of new visualizations that we've introduced for the layer 2 environment. And I'll show you a demo of these in just a moment. We're calling these simply a wheel diagram and a loom diagram. Not a very exciting name, but a very functional description of how these visualizations work. The wheel diagram that you'll see on the left here is a very scalable and expandable representation, and it gives you an excellent perspective of the connectivity from the vSwitch. So you'll be able to look in both directions at the virtual machines that are connected through this vSwitch, as well as out to the uplink port and out to the outside world. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. The visualization on the right is called the loom diagram. The loom diagram gives you a clear linear line of sight from the perspective of the virtual machine through the intermediate virtual infrastructure and out to the outside world. And this is a layout that's probably familiar if you've used vCenter, a very linear kind of layout here. So I'm going to jump out of this presentation. I'm going to go to live demo now, and we'll take a look at what it will look like in action. So what you're seeing here is a dashboard for one of the ESX hypervisors. You can see some information about this particular node, a summary. You'll see some details about the polled SNMP values, node sensor gauges. This is a very lightly loaded lab instance of hypervisor right now, but you can see resource utilization on the hypervisor. We see some information about scheduled outages and the status history of this particular node and our outage history. And as we scroll through the dashboard, we'll see our wheel visualization and our loom diagram. Now, these are pop-outs, so I'm going to go ahead and pop out the wheel diagram here. And what you'll notice about the wheel diagram is as I go around and hover over the virtual machines in this segment of the circle, you'll see tooltips come up, and you'll see the connectivity highlighted here. This section of the circle represents virtual machines, and as we hover over each of these, we're looking at a composite status of the connectivity to this particular virtual machine. As we click on the Virtual Machines tab here, and we expand this perspective, what we're able to see are the individual network adapters that are associated with these virtual machines. Some of these have a single network adapter, some of them have multiple network adapters, and we want to be able to look at the status of each of these network adapters, how they connect through the virtual switch, and how they connect to other virtual machines. So as we go around the circle here, you'll see that the next segment is the vSwitches segment. And so as we hover over the vSwitches and we look at connectivity from the perspective of the vSwitch, one of the things you're able to see is that we can look at how virtual machines connect with each other through the vSwitch, but also how the vSwitch then connects to the uplink port. And here, as we expand the uplink segment, we can see both the VMNIC that is present on the hypervisor and also the upstream switch that VMNIC connects to. Now, if we want to look at an individual end node, one of the things that we can do is to right-click and to filter on that end node. This is a very scalable representation, but sometimes when we're troubleshooting, we really want to focus on connectivity for an individual end node. And we can do that here by filtering on an end node and looking at the connectivity of that particular end node. We can clear the filter up here, and we can do filtering then based on the vSwitch as well, eliminating the other vSwitches and really showing exactly what the connectivity is for an individual vSwitch on a port-by-port basis. And again, we can collapse that to simplify it as well. We also have the ability to take a look at virtual machines that are powered down. By default, those are filtered out, but we can take a look at those and add those back in. We can expand this window, contract this window, and do our filtering here. So let me go ahead and bring up the loom diagram and show you what that looks like. The loom diagram here, as I mentioned, is a very linear view of connectivity from the perspective of the virtual machine. And this diagram we can zoom in and zoom out. We can do some similar filtering here by right-clicking and showing only an individual element. And then we get a clear line of sight through the vSwitch, through the VMNIC, and to the upstream switch. So we can clear that. We can also pan around in this view as well and zoom and then filter. So from a troubleshooting perspective, we get to a very clear view of how this virtual machine actually connects through the internal vSwitch fabric and how that connects then to the outside world. That's the Loom diagram. So I'll go ahead and switch back now to the presentation. We'll continue on and talk about some of the other features that we've introduced with 1010. So I think we'll finish up first by summarizing hypervisor-based network management. We've extended our existing monitoring capability, so we've added new objects. We're monitoring power state of the VMs. It's certainly helpful to understand whether your load balancer is actually powered up. We've extended our causal analysis, so we've introduced new status, new incidents, and new conclusions that are unique to the virtual environment. So examples, node paused or vSwitch degraded would be an example conclusion, or specific incidents around nodes powered down or a non-responsive web agent. And our goal here really is to assess and to visualize the impact of physical faults on the virtual environment and vice versa. The topology information that we're discovering, the status information we're discovering is fully propagated through our GNM extended configuration from the regional manager to the global manager. So we've fully scaled this capability for our distributed architecture. So finally, I'd like to launch the last polling question and ask about the network management team and their responsibility to manage the VMware environment, or does this reside in a dedicated systems group?
Yeah, and the question is, does the network management team manage VMware or any other group? One of the answers are three choices: the networks group, systems group, and other group. This is very important to know when we talk about change management and all these things. This is NNMi is greatly useful for us when we are recommended with our clients. That's what we notice. So Joe, you have any comment on this?
Yeah, I think we're seeing an evolution of organizations as well as an evolution of technology in the customers that we're talking to. And the shape of organizations are changing. I think people are starting to come out of organizational silos and looking at cross-functional organizations. And I'm just curious how this plays out in your environment.
Yeah. The polling is started and polling is going on. I give a minute.
Okay, thanks, Sri.
Yeah, and results are, does the network management team manage VMware another group? The answer is, like, a network group is 19%, systems group 68%, other 13%.
Okay, and I think that matches what we're expecting, what we're hearing from a lot of our clients. All right, so let's cover some of the other features that we've introduced in 1010. We, as you saw in the demo, we've updated the user interface. This is a cleaner, brighter, easier to read interface. We've separated the navigation bar off to the left and introduced a new color palette. A little bit more attractive interface, but still very familiar to your operations staff. In terms of scalability and performance improvements, we have scaled our GNM environment up from 65,000 to 80,000 nodes altogether. And we've introduced some pretty significant performance improvements in our discovery time. So when we added that additional discovery process, that web services-based discovery process, we went back and took a very close look at the entire code path for discovery. And what we were able to introduce in 1010 is some performance enhancements that actually exceed the performance of our 9.2x SNMP only based performance with the combined SNMP and web services discovery. So pretty significant discovery improvements there, an improvement in our performance to calculate root cause analysis, and a reduction in the time to sync status between our global and regional servers, again, for our distributed architecture. Likewise, in traffic, we've also made some pretty significant performance improvements. So in previous versions of traffic, we were able to support about 8 million exported flows per minute over 8 leaf nodes. And by going in and looking at how we optimize the handling of our flow records in the leaf nodes, we've been able to increase our overall throughput to 20 million flows per minute in the same hardware footprint. So we're still supporting 8 leaf nodes for traffic collection to a traffic master, but our overall throughput now is about 20 million flows per minute in the same footprint. So we're pretty excited about that. Other traffic spy enhancements include being able to more accurately characterize conversations between clients and servers. So it's a pretty straightforward exercise to map the connection or the flow from a client to a specific server where a service is offered. What we've introduced in 10.10 is the ability then to capture the return traffic that is returning to an unmapped random high range port as part of the conversation and correctly characterize the application that that's associated with. So that really helps us capture the full conversation, the full volume of the conversation across a particular reporting point, and it enhances our ability to characterize what was previously unknown traffic. So the net result there is where you may have seen a very large bucket in the past of unknown traffic that includes flows that are destined to return to clients and these unmapped high-range ports. What you'll see now in version 10.10 is the full conversation being captured, the full volume of traffic accurately characterized and associated with the correct application protocol. So we've really simplified the whole process of application protocol mapping in traffic. In addition, we've introduced some new dashboard views for traffic, and these complement our existing dashboard views, which are volumetric top-end charts. So we've broken down top applications by bandwidth utilization in ingress and egress traffic. We've also added then top destinations by bandwidth utilization, both ingress and egress. And then finally, top conversation sources by bandwidth utilization. And this really highlights conversations between IP pairs that are driving utilization. Who's talking to who, how much are they using, and what are they talking about? So really being able to get down and answer those questions. I'd also like to highlight a couple of features that we introduced previously in 10.01. We've expanded our quality assurance iSpy to be able to support additional measurement technologies. Previously we supported Cisco IPSLA. We've added now Juniper RPM, the ability to discover time-stamped enabled probes on Juniper devices, and some additional jitter metrics that we're monitoring. So in summary now, we support Cisco IPSLA, Juniper RPM, the H3C NQA, network quality analysis technology, very similar to IPSLA, and then also our own standalone software agent, the intelligence response agent. We're seeing a lot of our customers deploy those at remote locations or in public cloud environments to be able to characterize the quality of their connectivity to those locations. So we're normalizing those, presenting those in a common operational interface, and then identifying the underlying technology that we're using. Other features that we introduced in 10.01, the ability to replicate server configuration through a configuration export and import tool, the ability to use the locale then for the sort order of usernames when we're assigning incidents, and some security work that we introduced in 10.01 around the ciphers that we're using to secure communications channels. So let's talk a little bit about supported environments. One of the things we're very excited about in 10.10 is the introduction of off-cycle device support. So in previous versions of NNMi, you've had to wait for minor or major releases for new device support. And what we've introduced in 10.10 is a facility that's very similar to what we've been running in network automation for several years. The ability to incorporate new device support off-cycle, and we'll deliver that then through HPE Live Network. This is basic device support, so the ability to collect performance and health metrics from devices. Certain types of devices where we're changing how we model and how we present those devices, we may still need some additional internal work within the product, and so support for that may need to wait until the next release. But for the bulk of devices that we're asked to support, the ability to integrate new off-cycle device support is going to mean that we are much more responsive in adding new devices to our support matrix. We expect to release content about every 2 months or so. In terms of supported platforms, we're trying to make sure that our platform keeps up with the pace of change in your environment in terms of platform support, different high availability technologies, virtualization technologies that you're deploying, and browser support for your clients. And I'll add that we have added in 10.10 support for Oracle 12c and 12c Rack. One thing that I'd like to remind this audience of is that committed support for NNMi 9.2x is coming to an end this coming summer. And so if you're not already planning your move to NNMi 10.x, this is a good time to start thinking about that. So in terms of next steps, we'd like for you to get 10.10 into your environment, and we'd like for you to explore this new capability in terms of the network virtual edge discovery and visualization. And we'd like for you to consider how this feature can support the deployment of virtual network functions in your environment, and how this can support the deployment of network appliances in the hypervisor for you. And we'd like to hear from you about your requirements in this area as we continue to evolve this capability. We'd also like for you to take another look at traffic, take a look at the scale and analytics, our ability to characterize full conversations. Take a look at that in your environment and see if that may be a good fit for your requirements. In terms of the integration of NNMi and network automation, whether you are a network automation customer today or an NNMi customer today, we're hearing from many of our customers about the value of the integration. So being able to take configuration and compliance data, put that on the dashboard, and make that part of the troubleshooting process on the NNMi dashboard is a very valuable capability for many of our customers. The ability to do troubleshooting in NNMi, identify a root cause, and then seamlessly cross-launch to remediate that problem immediately is a very powerful capability. We're also hearing from our customers that they are integrating their onboarding process, where they're introducing a new device, configuring that in their change management database, taking that from bare metal, provisioning that with a standard configuration in NA, and then passing that inventory on to NNMi to put that device under management as a complete and comprehensive onboarding process. Just a reminder that we are supporting upgrades to 10.10 directly from that latest NNMi 9.2x patch level. So if you're still on 9.2x, you can go straight to 10.10, and we're supporting in-place upgrades, obviously, from 10.0 and 10.01 to 10.10. So I think with that, let's go ahead and open it up to questions. We have a couple of people on the line that can field questions, including Larry Besaw, who's our principal architect for the Network Management Center, Brian Kaplan, product manager for network automation. I believe our director of product management is on the line, as well as our marketing manager. So Shri, if you could help facilitate questions, I think we have about 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I think there is a question here, I think very interesting. Usually we get, why don't you support CentOS? From Srikanth. So that is the question, is why don't we support CentOS?
Okay, I think I'll go ahead and take that. And I think for many of our customers historically, the commercial support of Linux distributions has been critically important to them. Customers in the past have been more reluctant to deploy distributions that don't have a strong commercial support offering. That's not the case anymore with CentOS and a number of other distributions, but it led us in the past to look at Red Hat Enterprise Linux and SUSE as our primary offerings in the Linux space. If you're interested in having CentOS as a supported operating system, drop me a line. I'd like to hear about your requirements and the scope of your deployment.
Thank you, Joe. The next question is very interesting, and this is the question we hear from clients all the time. What is the version for BSM connector with this 10.10 release? What is the version for BSM connector?
Okay, I think I can take that one. So BSM connector version supported is 10.01 with OMI 10, but just checking, I think there may have been some restriction in terms of the connector version to support the 9.2x version. Let me check on that here. Yeah, no, that's the same version. So yeah, it's BSM connector 10.01.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the last question. I think we are running out of time, and thank you. The last question is, does the integration with UCMDB change with the virtual environment being monitored with NNMi?
So, so there are a couple of changes there around sort of name identification. So one thing is previously NNMi actually didn't set the node name in UCMDB, and in order to help node reconciliation, that's now getting set, kind of using the standard best practice rule. Another change is that the VM UUID is also getting set for VMs, so that'll help with reconciliation around VMs as well. So there's been a couple of enhancements there, but otherwise no major changes.
Okay, thank you, thank you everyone. And all these questions are answered and going to be loaded into PDF document, and it will be there in our when we get we will going to publish that PDF document. And I'm going to end this session today, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Please be sure to complete a short survey after the webinar ends, and also opt in to receive more information from HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and production NNMi product details. Just a reminder that webinar recording and the slide deck will be posted to the Vivit website. In the next few days, you will receive an email with those links. And a great session. Thank you all, and thanks for your detailed information. We are excited to see this 10.10 and NNMi 10.10 release. And have a good day, and thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Shri.
Yeah, thank you.